This is another archival upload of my previous mix critique videos. Again, I apologize for the vertical format that this video is about to switch to. This is 81 through 85. This track was sent in by Mika. Alright, right away, the kick is really muddy and probably a little overpowering in the subs. That definitely needs to be tamed a little bit more. Yeah, just the overall amount of low end in that kick is taking away from the low end punch of the guitars and the bass. Honestly, even the high end of the kick is overpowering. I think maybe just turn the kick down a lot, because this track is like 90% kick drum. Like, that's not a good way to do this. It's just covering up everything else. All right, guitars are also a little harsh in the high mids. I would definitely try to find some of those painful high mid frequencies and just take those out a little bit. On the mastering side of things, you definitely hit that limiter way too hard. Like, you pushed it way too far. It's starting to distort. You really need to utilize a clipper before you hit the limiter on your master bus, because this is just too much. It's messing up the whole track. All right, so all the source tones sound good, so this mix could definitely be better, but there's way too much kick drum. That is your main problem. That's got to be pulled down a lot. You got to clean up the mud, although that's probably mostly the kick drum. You got to deal with those painful high frequencies in the guitar and the cymbals, and you're hitting your limiter way too hard. Definitely put a clipper before the limiter to take about probably half the load of the amount you're trying to push it out of the limiter. That'll not only help you get it louder in general, but I mean, it's already pretty loud, but basically you'll be able to hit a loud volume without it distorting and sounding kind of gross like it does now. This was sent in by Taylor. Lots of problems already. The kick drum sounds really basketball-y. Try taking out a lot of around like the 800 hertz range in the kick drum. The guitars are out of tune. That's already a serious problem. Sounds like you're missing a lot of low end in everything. And yeah, honestly, the source tones sound problematic, and it's going to be very difficult to get a good mix with bad source tones. Cowbell sounds great though. Also, your guitar performance isn't that great. I'm hearing some wrong notes in there. If the source tone and the performance aren't there, the mix is never gonna be there. All right, so the most important thing here is, please, for the love of God, tune your fucking guitar. Because if it's not in tune, it's not gonna sound good. You need to be a lot more critical of your performance. Like, you need to edit better. You need to get better takes overall. And in general, just don't even think about mixing at this point, because your main problem is source tones. You need to get the source tones sounding good before you can even think about the mixing side of things. I would recommend you get a hold of some multi-tracks for any professional song in the genre you want to emulate, so you can listen to how the guitar track sounds on its own, how the drums sound on their own, how the bass sounds on their own, and so on, so you can get an idea for what a good source tone for these instruments sounds like outside of the context of a mix. The track was sent in by Sean. So far, tones aren't that bad, honestly, but your guitar's out of tune. Like I mentioned in the last critique, if your guitar is out of tune, nothing is gonna sound good. This tone sounds like it could be really cool if the guitars were in tune, but every time I hear those slightly off notes, it's killing me inside. Okay, so that intro was way too long. Like, this is what, a 2-minute and like 10-second track? That was 55 seconds of intro. That's literally half the track. Like, there's no reason for that to be that long. Like, you took a good sound and a good thing and just went way too far with it. This part of the track doesn't sound too bad, actually. There's definitely an overall level problem, like everything needs to be brought up much louder, but the drums don't sound too bad. I would like some more attack out of the snare, maybe a little more compression on the drums overall. I definitely want some more bass, but it's honestly, tones are not bad at all for what they are. Just a lot of this is going to be balance and compression. That riff is really sloppy. Like, that feel change doesn't really work well with the drums. Like, it's a cool idea, but you gotta play that part on guitar way faster to match up with these drums. It feels like you did something weird with the editing there, because after that whole guitar part that sounded a little off, the whole guitar part is way behind the drums. So I don't know what the hell happened there, but you definitely gotta look at that. This track was sent in by Matt.
My mind, It's a life of expectations, what will you?
Alright, not bad so far. It's a little harsh in the upper mids. The cowbell and the snare are a little too loud, and again, that's where a lot of the harshness is those two things. So I would probably dip a little in the like 2.5 to like 5.5K range.
Saw a chance, but I hesitate to come.
Bass sounds really good. There's a lot of good sub information, but it's not overpowering. It's giving the song a lot of really good energy. You asked how the vocals were sitting. They're probably just a hair too loud over the track. And again, you got some harshness in the upper mids there. I would probably cut probably around 3K in the vocals there.
Lifted and tie all the ends, but if I organize.
That was a great transition. Great synth solo at the end here. Matt, starting out this week strong. That song was a fucking jam, dude. Pretty much the only issue I really had was that harsh upper mid frequencies, kind of across multiple sources, so you might be able to just dip a little bit on the overall master bus. But overall, that was really good. The only other thing really that I noticed was during the choruses, I wish there was an additional like high-end instrumentation, maybe some strings or just some kind of high-end pad or something to give everything a lift in the chorus would be really cool. But other than that, that is a really solid track. Good job. This track was sent in by Joe. Not bad so far. Guitars are a little muddy. That lead line definitely needs some more high end. That should be like floating over the top of everything else. And the snare, it's clearly a sample, but it's too consistent. In the intro, it just sounds way too constant. There's no dynamics in it at all. That's a problem. You need to make those drums sound a little bit more realistic. Honestly, the kick drum is kind of overpowering the entire track. It's adding a lot of mud to everything. I think you need to pull that kick down a little bit. Honestly, your low end in general is pushed way too high. It seems like you just like put a giant shelf under like 200 hertz and it's making everything sound super dark. It's taking away all of the upper mid-range attack out of everything, so we're not getting a lot of definition. All right, so pretty solid track overall, Joe. The drum tones were pretty good. The guitar tones were really good. I think the biggest things are the snare sounds really fake. You got to automate the velocity on that a lot. Probably a little too much reverb on the drums, and the kick is overpowering everything, just especially the low end of the kick. It's just making the entire mix sound super, super dark, and it's just completely taking away from everything else in the mix. And it makes the whole track sound really unbalanced across the frequency spectrum because the low end is boosted so much with that kick. So fix that and that alone, and that will automatically make your mix a lot better. But overall, not bad.